Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank y'all for pulling up. I know it's Friday afternoon. It's like one of the last talks of the day, so I really appreciate y'all for coming. Oh, please take a seat, by all means. Um, but yes, if you came to complain about technical debt, this is probably the best place to come because we're going to do a lot of complaining today. So if you feel free to vent today, please feel free. This is an open forum. I want y'all to feel comfortable about the issues that you guys see, the things that you guys deal with on every day. But um, this talk is called "When You Say This Is a Problem, Let's Implement a Plan to Clean Up Technical Debt." I actually hate that title because it just kind of got to the point. I just did a whole bunch of research and I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But let's get it going. So I'm Reggie, and I am known as Mad Black Man. If you follow me on Twitter and stuff like that, everybody knows me as Mad Black Man. I promise I'm not a Mad Black Man. Not like this Mad Black Man. Not like that. Like Samuel Jackson mad. I'm not mad at all. I just love the show Mad Men. Anybody watch Mad Men in here? Anybody? Yeah. Who are your favorite characters? Anybody? Favorite character? Cool. My man. I like you already. I like you already. All right, cool. So, and I'm an SRE. For those who don't know, I'm a site reliability engineer. So, performance, monitoring, troubleshooting backend systems, dealing with all the cloud stuff. So, the unfortunate reality is that I see how code affects the system in very tangible ways, right? So you have this bad code, things are happening. You see CPUs spiking, memories going off. You see containers just restarting left and right. You kind of like, dude, what's going on? And so I'm constantly working with my developers on how we can make the system more resilient, better, so on and so forth. So yes, I'm the guy who complains about how your bad code affects the stability of the system. Smiley face. I am that guy. But, I'm always patient. I'm always, working with my team, and we're always just trying to make things better. And just to be completely honest with you, I know I talked about how I hated the title. I really wish I could change the title of this talk to "How This Black Guy Is Going to Talk to Me About Making My Job Harder." Because that's literally what's about to happen. Cleaning up technical debt is just not an easy thing to do, and we all deal with it. It's the reality of our jobs, is we get paid to do, is to deal with technical debt. And the reality is technical debt is a generational curse, period. Most of us in here probably, is anybody on here working on a system that's not legacy? You're working on a system that's not legacy. Is it in production? It's legacy. So, so everybody in here is working on a legacy system. It is what it is. The second it goes to production, it is a legacy system. Your code has now become old. Your system has accumulated some level of technical debt. And typically, this is what our debt looks like. And it's usually a sea of debt. And typically, whenever we try to clean it up, that's us. That is us. You see how you got a little small little red bag? You just going one by one. It's like, dude, we're never gonna get this. And let's just be honest. For most of us, this is the reality of our everyday jobs, right? There's all of this debt here, and we're trying to clean it up. Sometimes we don't even try to clean it up. Let's just be real. A lot of us don't even try to clean it up. And we're trying to deal with all of this while the businesses continue to add more things on top of our plate, right? So my whole career essentially has been dealing with these technical debt. That's kind of how I've learned how to become an SRE. But we're going to put together a plan to fix this. I'll give you some tips. I'm going to tell you some things that kind of happened throughout my career that helped me learn how to start actually implementing plans to actually clean up some of this technical debt. I'm not saying that everywhere I went to is just debt-free, because it just doesn't exist and it never will, but we actually help make the environment better for everybody. Smiley face. So it's funny, when I was doing this talk and I was doing all this research, I watched every video you can imagine, read all the white papers, read all the blogs, I read everything, and I was gonna do this whole thing where technical debt is like this blah 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 blah, but we all know what it is, right? We all deal with it, we know what it is. I don't wanna do this whole thing of like, oh, well, technical debt is just one specific thing, because technical debt is going to be different depending on whatever environment you're in. But the reality is, it's just a pain in the ass. No matter where you go, it is a pain in the ass. It's no way around that. But why is that? That's the question that I really want to answer. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that every day we have to make decisions. right? And whenever we add some new feature, we make some type of architectural decision, we have to make some type of trade-off. It's just what we do, right? So in that, I mean, every day you got to pick what clothes you're gonna wear. You got to pick what you want to eat. I don't know, peaches and beans. Anybody? No? Peaches and beans. All right, cool. You got to figure out what show you're gonna watch. Game of Thrones. Anybody? No. Anybody know what episode it's from?
Oh yeah.
I can just hear the disgust in your voice. Man, decisions. We all have to make decisions. And the reality is that making decisions can be hard when you're an engineer. Very, very, very difficult, right? Because you have to, when you make this decision, that means there's all these other things you have to forget. Or if I make this decision, there's always context of decisions that we're making. And the reality is when we have technical debt in our systems, it makes making decisions tough. That's why it's important for us to actually maintain it and take care of it, parent our technical debt. Because the more technical debt it accumulates, the harder it is for us to make decisions as to what direction we need to go with our systems. I had to pull Homer up, man, because Homer is the ultimate philosopher on everything. I love Homer. So especially when you understand the trade-offs, making decisions is hard. But what happens when you don't understand the trade-offs? Right? You have to make these decisions, and you don't really understand what you're about to get yourself into, which is typically what we all do. We have to make these decisions. We don't know what's going to happen when I have to make this decision. So this is a position that we're all in, and we have to deal with some sort of technical debt. So y'all can like laugh and smile and stuff. It's all good. Like it's cool. Like it's all good. So I want to talk about my first lesson. The first lesson I learned, and it actually has to do with my first job in tech. And I don't know if any of you remember your first job in tech, but there's like an equal level of excitement and like just a room full of just ignorance that you're just like, I'm excited, but I don't know what the hell I'm about to do. I don't know what I'm about to get myself into, and that's me. That was like, I just want to go in, I want to do stuff. I've been coding on my own, I'm doing all of these tutorials and building projects on my own, and somebody's actually gonna pay me to write crummy code. I'm all for it. But when you get into your first job, you start realizing that the code don't look like the code that you actually been practicing with. It kind of looks more like this, right? This is kind of what the code looks like. It's just all beat up, engine on some stacks, all this kind of stuff. And you're kind of like, man, why does this code look so crummy? Like, what's going on? Do people not know how to code? Like, what's happening here? And then people asking you to add things onto the car, like, hey, man, I need some new rims on this. And you like, where? Can't put rims on this, bro. Like, this is not what we're doing. And so what I started beginning to realize is that the problem when people ask these questions about adding features and doing things to our code base is that we have broken mental models. That's really what it comes down to. We have broken mental models. A lot of people that you see is usually that one guy, the unicorn on the team, who knows everything about the code base because he's been there for forever. But he's always busy because he has to work on something else. He has to fix something else. But the new people that come on a team, well, who do they go to? How do they build a mental model of this code base? And you end up spinning your wheels over and over and over again, trying to understand, well, what the hell do I do? Where am I even supposed to start? So me being the ambitious guy, yeah, man, you know what? I want to do something. I'm about to make my mark. I want to fix all the things, everything. I want to fix it. Got an idea. Yeah, I got an idea. It's going down. I'm about to leave my mark on this company. I'm gonna let them know Reggie is here, and I'm here to fix your problems. Let's build a tool to fix the problem. That's what my team looked at me like, all right, bro, you got that? You got that, bro? I said, man, forget them. They don't want to fix it. I'll do it. I got this. And I did it. Spun up the server, built a little document database, the whole nine, got the DNS, everything wired up, ready to go. Then I realized something. Now I have to keep the documentation updated. Now I got to keep the server updated. In fact, I just introduced an entire new system to our environment. And the reality is now I'm being asked to maintain this new tool that I've just introduced into the environment. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wanted to deal with it. And so I was like, dang, bro, I just added more debt. So the reality is, a lot of times when you go into environments, you think adding and bringing in more tools are going to make things better. And it's just not. It's not. New tools typically add more debt than it eliminates. Point blank period. And we all do it. We're all guilty of it. Even when you're coding. I remember when I was a front-end programmer. Man, we got this new library, man. I think it's gonna fix all our problems. We're bringing this whole new library. It fixes our problems, but then you start realizing, wait a minute, this is an open source library, and they ain't updated in like 6 months. And then you start realizing they not keeping their code updated, and now I gotta keep my code updated. So guess what? Now you fork it, and you bring it in because you don't want to have any breaking changes, and you're adding all of this debt. You just keep adding debt. If you don't need to add new tools, don't add new tools. Like the greatest way to eliminate technical debt is omission. Just don't add shit. Don't add shit. It's just that simple. Just don't add anything. And I think that's a hard thing to do because I think just as developers, we have this fire in us. We always want to try the new things. We always want to add all these new things. Man, I heard about this new library. Let's try it out. But now you just added something that you got to maintain. So think about that. There's a trade-off there. Do you want to add that new library? Do you want to add this new code base? Is it going to solve the problem that you have already made? I already have a tool that can solve it. Maximize the tools you already work with. Use the shit that's already there. It's just that, just use the shit that's already there. And then, if you really need to bring something in, y'all need to have a discussion, and then y'all can need to take more time to understand what are the trade-offs we really want to add this. What is going to be the plan for keeping this thing maintained and updated? What are we going to do? Actually really think about these things before you just go and start adding all of these new tools. I was a dummy. I made that mistake, and to this day, I think that server is up, and they still getting charged for it, and they don't know about it, but that's on them. Next lesson. Everybody deals with this, right? Business wants to add a new feature. How often does the business want to add a new feature?
Every day.
Every single day. Never fails. Every single day. And the business thinks the road's gonna be super smooth. They think it's like, oh yeah, we can get this done in 2 weeks. It's going down. You say, nah, man, it's gonna take about 6. No, we're gonna get it done in 2. You're talking to your project manager like, bro, did you not hear me? Like, what's going on? But we all know that's what it's gonna really look like. Once you really actually start working on this thing, you like, fuck, man, look. Shit, man, okay. Let me think about this thing when you're going through your sprint planning, man. I know we got that little skeleton in this closet over here. We got this big one right here we still need to take care of. Ooh, I don't know how we're going to get there, but guess what you end up doing? You go ahead and drive down that road, and your car end up looking like the cars that we saw in the beginning. But you got there. You got there. And we all know we're going to see some shit along the way. That's just the reality of whenever we want to add on these new features. And let's just be real. All technical debt is not inherently bad. Kanye shrug. I want the old Kanye back. I want the old. He's just Kanye. I know. I know, but I want the old Kanye back. I need college dropout back. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you clap? Did you clap? So I mean, and it just kind of makes most technical debt, you know, as far as decision making, it's a very risky endeavor, right? When you add on these new features, it's gonna be risky. You know, you're taking a risk every time you add on a new feature because you have to deal with this accumulated technical debt on the back end. So how can we become more risk averse, right? And I feel like it wouldn't be a technical debt talk if I didn't mention this. Fucking document, man. Actually, just document it. Just document it. And here's why. And emphasis on tightly coupled, right? Because the story I told earlier about me spinning up a server and introducing this new tool, I have to maintain this tool, right? Anybody use Golang here yet? Anybody play with Golang at all? No? Just me? You know, that's what happened when you SRE. So Golang has this methodology that when they develop the language that they want people to document their code better, right? So they have this tool called Go Format, and basically what you do is like you use regular comments, and you put these comments around your functions and things like that, and it'll automatically spit it out as like an HTML page with all your documentation on your functions, how they work, all that kind of stuff, right? And I think that's important because I don't want to go scour around everywhere to find documentation on how this thing works. When you write that code right then, that is the best time to document it. Point blank, period. Because if you come back in a week, you'll be like, I don't know why I do that. Why I do that? Don't even make sense. This is stupid. Who wrote this? You looking at the commit shy? Oh, that was me. Okay. Yeah, you're the best time to document is right there. Add the what, add the why, add the how. Emphasis on the how. The reason why I say the how is this is what I usually typically end up doing with my developers. They add this code, cool, committed, everything looks good, get it to deployment, come back a week later, we gotta make some changes to it. Okay, cool. So what are the different ways that you tried to implement this? Huh? Yeah. What are other ways that you tried doing this? What paths did you go down, right? Because we all know whenever we write code, it's not a straight line. You write code, you're going this way, that's a dead end, and let's go this way. Might be a dead end here. Oh, it might be here. That's a dead end there. You don't think wouldn't it help to let people know what dead ends you hit along the way to your solution? So they now don't have to spend time actually having to do all the stuff that you already did. It's a great talk. It's called Let's Not Talk About Velocity, Let's Talk About Acceleration. And she talks about this idea of whenever we're creating these solutions, making sure we have the proper context so we can make the right decisions, all these things. And a lot of time when we add these features and we add these things to the code bases, we spend so much time redoing work that somebody already did. And it doesn't make sense. I don't want to spend a week trying to understand all of the paths or going down all the same roads as you already went down. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. That's not really a valuable use of my time. I want to say, hey, this is how they did it. Cool. Let's not even waste our time with that. All right, cool. Let's try these other methods. That's the importance of documentation. It gives context so we can make better decisions quicker, right? And the lack of it, the reality is it's technical debt. And it will continue to accumulate interest. Like you said earlier, debt is just like student loan debt. It's just like any other debt. It collects interest. The longer you're away from that code, as you add more team members onto the team, as team members leave, the reality is you accumulate interest. Because nobody's going to have all of that context of what was happening when that person wrote that code the first time. So your debt is always accumulating. Your debt is always accumulating. And the reality is that changing software is always harder than writing it. It's easy for me to just spin up a new repo and build out a whole new application. That's easy. It's easy, but when I got to go behind somebody and actually make changes to said software and update it and add things, that's when things get more difficult. So, tightly coupled documentation. Y'all look like so sad and defeated. Like y'all like, bro, this is never gonna happen. This is funny because I already knew it was gonna happen. But so cool. It's time for sprint planning, right? Everybody has these moments. Everybody does sprint planning differently. Everybody has their ways of doing it. They might play games. You have points. You might have time estimates. You have all of these different ways of doing it. For me, when I'm in the room with my developers, it's time to do sprint planning. This is how I look. Because the reality is, backlogs can paint really pretty pictures. Oh man, we're gonna add all of these new features. We're gonna have all these things we need to add. And it's like, oh yeah, we got all this great work we got coming up. And it's like, nah, we don't. We really don't. Oh yeah, I think it's gonna take us 4 hours. Nah, it's probably gonna take us 12 hours, right? Because I'm mentally going through. Man, okay, man, we got to make that change, but we got to update the libraries. We got to make sure the tests are in place because I don't want to make all of these changes and the tests aren't in place, and all of a sudden things break. And a lot of times when we're trying to push something out the door, let's be real. How many people actually test? A couple. Man, that's great. Yeah, I wish. Um, it's not always like that, right? Everybody doesn't always add tests. And the reality is that sometimes when you're in a rush to get things out the door, even the tests that you may put in, they might be a little bit fragile. Or they're just testing the bare minimum stuff. Sometimes they're not testing against like what the requirements of the story are, right? So as you add these new things and these tests aren't really in place and you're adding these breaking changes, you don't know what's gonna happen. And you try to keep up with the tests, but sometimes like shit just get piled up. So technical debt needs to be transparent. It just has to be transparent. When you're in the moment and you're making these decisions, these trade-offs to your architecture, to your application, that's the number one time to make that transparent. And one thing that I had to do was I had to start tracking debt alongside the other stories. If there was ever a time to actually say, let's make technical debt visible and tangible, why not do it right then when you're introducing it into your system, right? Putting it on a backlog, making it apparent, giving you a little tag. All right, technical debt. Here's what we did. This is what's going on here. Here are the issues it might bring up. Adding all of that context and putting it on the backlog. No, you might not take care of it right then and there, but at least it's out there for people to know about. And then one thing that actually ended up happening with our team, that technical debt started piling up. And now we're looking like, well, we want to add all these features. Man, we got all this technical debt we got to take care of. So let's pick something. We got to pick something. 10%, I don't care, a couple hours. Let's pick something and just get it off the backlog. Making it visible so the project managers and the business are aware of the things that's going on. Like, hey, y'all, like, I know y'all want to do all this stuff, but all of this stuff right here is going to affect us down the road. So let's make this thing more visible because you have to start quantifying your risk, right? The reality is that technical debt is a risk. It is a risk. You're introducing a risk into your system. Because you don't know how that technical debt is going to come back and bite you in the ass. It could be next week. It could be months from now. You just don't know. You try to do as much as you can. You try to observe and add as many metrics as you can. But the reality is sometimes this shit is just magic. It is what it is. So I always say, just dedicate at least 10% of your time paying down debt. 10% of your time just paying down debt every sprint. If you can do that, like I said, you're not going to get the debt all the way down, but you're at least building up a good habit and you're moving in the right direction. Will all these things completely eliminate your technical debt? I know somebody said that, and I'm just keeping 100. Oh, hell no. It's not happening. It'll never go away. It's never going to go away. But the whole idea is to actually build a habit of maintaining it, actually having some level of control of it, and not allowing it to accumulate to the point of, oh, shit, man, we can't really add nothing. Imagine having so much credit card debt that you like looking at McDonald's and you want that 99-cent fry and you like, man, bro, I can't do that today, dog. I just can't do it. It's not fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even go do the simple things anymore. But in the reality, this at least gets you going in the right direction. So, say all that to say, start cleaning up your messes by maximizing the tools that you already have. Dang, what's going on? Oh, somebody texted me. Yeah. Like, man, why are you texting me right now? You know I'm doing things. Tightly couple your documentation to your code, and treat your debt like any other story. Treat your debt like any other story. Treat it like any other thing that you would add onto your backlog. And if y'all enjoy my humor and like how I talk about technology and shit, I didn't cuss as much, thank God. But I have a podcast. It's called Coolest Nerds in the Room, and it's me and my homegirl Steph. We talk a lot of shit about tech and all the bullshit we see. I know y'all all see it. I mean, we just talk about it. We just don't care. So yeah, man, go check it out. All that good stuff. And my name is Reggie. This is how I think about technology. Thanks. If y'all got questions and stuff, I know I got like done pretty early. Y'all got questions and stuff, by all means, I'm here to answer questions and talk shit. So by all means, go for it.
So you say track that alongside your stories. That makes no sense to do it when you add a new feature that's this case. Often that you don't realize that it is that until
this is true.
Like how do you suggest identifying what that is?
You said how do I suggest identifying what that is?
Yeah, to be able to track it.
It's trade-offs, right? I mean, you're making architectural decisions, right? Typically you're running. A lot of times I see people, they try to rush through getting the code done because they're trying to meet some type of deadline. But I usually typically try to work closely with my engineer or with my software developers. And I usually try to get somebody that has some type of system experience and perspective to actually kind of sit down and say, or hey, like, let's talk about this. If I make this change, like, what's going to happen? Do you understand what's going to happen? Do you understand how this is going to affect the memory? Are you using functions that are you adding it to the heap? Are you adding to the stack? What's actually happening underneath the hood, and actually kind of getting a little bit more, building a mental model of what the code is doing, right? And I think a lot of times what I always see is that I work with developers, they don't have a really good mental model of what the code is doing underneath the hood, right? And how it's actually going to affect the system. So I always try to take the time and say, okay, cool, let's think about what this thing is doing and what is going to happen under the hood. And if you don't know, you don't know. I'm not saying you're going to catch everything because you don't know. Like, everybody doesn't know. But I always like try to have, that's why I try to do a lot of pair programming, right? We sit down with each other and we try to make these decisions. And I always try to sit with my programmers and say, cool, do you know what this is going to do? No. Let's go figure it out. And then we can document it. And then we can know, okay, well, this is kind of what it's doing in the hood. I have a better idea of what's happening there. And then from there, it might not be technical debt then, but at some point down the road, if it is technical debt then, the second it appears, then you might need to just retrofit and go back and add it to your backlog. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm a mainly Ruby programmer. I'm supposed to have the kind of idiomatic, don't put comments all over the code because they can be inaccurate. And so there's the whole name your stuff to what it does, name your variables, what they represent, those type of things. And so with that, it makes you reluctant to write comments for things that somebody else may change down the line. They leave the comment there, and you go back to it and say, this isn't what I'm
Yeah. Yeah, my first job, there was a lot of that. They're like, don't put all these comments in the code. But it's like, what does it hurt? Who are you hurting by adding a comment to the code, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's one thing to just have a name of the function, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I've dealt with some people that just name their functions really shitty things. And or they use their variable, it's like variable X. I'm like, what the fuck is X? What is this? You know what I'm saying? What is this? So it's just more so, it doesn't even necessarily have to always be comments about what it's doing under the hood or specific details, but what purpose is it serving? What is it doing? What is it interacting with? Hey, this API is going to call this, and it's going to go down the stack trace, and it may call this. You see what I'm saying? Like, actually giving more context at how it interacts with the rest of your code base. You know what I'm saying? Because it's one thing to just name a function, but what is calling that function? Who's using this function? What's happening here? You know what I'm saying? Adding that kind of context to your code base so people can actually start connecting the dots as to what's actually going on within the code base. Any other questions? Man, you late.
You got out early.
Oh man, it's all good, bro. Cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns, complaints? Yes, ma'am.
How would you suggest managing someone else's?
She said, how do you suggest managing someone else's technical debt? I'm that person. I'm not gonna lie, I hate it, but somebody has to do it. So what I will go in and do is, like, I don't even write C#, and we're a C# shop. I actually will go in and I'll just sit there. I hate doing stuff like this, and I don't even suggest you do stuff like this, but you can do it. I'll take the time to actually read through the code base and understand the architecture of the application, and I document it, and I actually even diagram it. Because even one time, I diagrammed out the whole application and all the APIs, and I put it in our little Confluence and said, boom, these are public, these are private, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, that API shouldn't be public. And nobody even realized it was public until it was time to go to production, because they poked a hole in the API, and I'm like, bro, that doesn't even make sense. So sometimes you have to be the person that just goes in, read the code base, document it, diagram it, so where everybody can come in and understand it. And then once everybody comes in and understand it, then you can have people come in and add to the documentation. The reality is, when it comes to like documenting or dealing with other people's technical debt, the reality is that somebody has to start. It's not a thing where magically everybody's gonna feel like dealing with it. Somebody has to grab the bulls by the horn and own that responsibility, because they see the bigger picture. Because I think sometimes we get so caught up in our own personal progress and our own personal, I need to get this done, that we forget about the velocity of the entire team. And so you have to be considerate of that, because if you can make the team go faster, I think that's way better than you going faster by yourself, because it don't make any sense for me to go super fast and everybody else is lagging behind because they don't understand what's going on. Yes.
At what point do you decide you need to just burn this to the ground and start over?
Man, burn it to the ground. First of all, you never make that decision unless you want to get fired. Because at the end of the day, the business is using this thing to make money, so you just can't burn it down and say, hey, like, fuck it all. I would say,
Okay, we'll build the new one first and then burn the old one.
okay, all right, cool. Well, I mean, you got to do it in parts, though, right? Like, you got to do it in parts. You got to find the lowest hanging fruit of your application and say, okay, like, let's start slowly but surely moving this thing over. There's no wholesale rewrite. You can't do it. It just doesn't make sense. I hear my developers like, man, let's just rewrite the whole thing in a whole new stack. I'm like, bitch, you don't even know how it worked in the first place. How do you completely rewrite an application that you don't even understand how it works? It doesn't make sense. So you have to begin by understanding what you're dealing with first, and then you have to find the lowest hanging fruit, and then you can kind of start slowly but surely building out this new application, moving the APIs over, all that kind of stuff. So no, don't do that. I don't want to see you lose your job, dog. We cool now. I know you from Chicago. I don't want to do that. Any other questions, concerns, complaints? I mean, y'all been looking real cool, boy. The TNT crew, y'all cool. Y'all cool.
Just got my arm up.
That's what's up. Any other questions, complaints, concerns? Anybody got funny questions or stories? Want to share their experiences dealing with technical debt? I'm always down to hear about a good tech. Ooh,
I don't have a story, but I am getting started in tech, and so just wanted to know, as someone who, I don't want to always say the term junior, but who would be a new developer coming in and seeing code base, how should I look at code base and all that stuff with the technical debt as part of it? Like, how should I approach it?
see it for what it is. See it for what it is. The biggest thing about being a junior or being new to the industry and dealing with like maybe your first code base that has all this technical debt is that, first off, you really have no mental model of what a real life production like application looks like. So you have to accept it for what it is, right? And then from there, what I started doing was I started learning from other people who understood what it meant to build solid architectures, build solid applications. And then I started taking that mental model and applying it to what I saw there and figuring out, okay, cool, like this is probably technical debt. This is probably technical debt. These are things, maybe these are rush decisions here. These are rush decisions there. But at the end of the day, the reality is you got to deal with what you see. And you need to learn that application and how it works. Because at the end of the day, it is what it is. You've been handed a card, you've been handed a deal of cards, and you just got to deal with it. But that does not mean stop learning outside of it. I think sometimes we get caught up in the bubble of our own applications in our own companies, and we have our own way of thinking how the application work and think within that bubble. And the reality is the best way to become a great engineer, a great architect is start pulling ideas from other places, right? So don't ever stop pulling ideas from other places and bringing those as suggestions to the team, and continue to build upon that mental model that you created for yourself. Oh, you had a question. I seen you had your hand
Oh,
up.
yeah, I was gonna say, there was a talk in here yesterday about creating a culture of quality. It kind of
Absolutely.
strikes me that like quality and technical debt are like two opposites of the same coin. And the talk was kind of talking about how like there's all these kind of process things you can change all the way down the pipeline that I guess would result in you adding less technical debt over time. So
Yep.
you're kind of fighting the problem from two sides. It's like you're fixing the existing issues, obviously, the 10% thing you're talking about,
Yep.
but then also just trying to add less of it over time.
Absolutely. I think standardization is actually going to always help with quality, right?
Yeah.
Because like I know with the teams that I deal with, like it's maybe 2 or 3 SREs on my team, so we're probably supporting about 70 software developers. And everybody has their own way of doing things, and everybody's pulling from the same code bases. And the one thing that helps a lot is standardization, automating standardization, bringing that standardization in a pipeline, right? So if I can go into my Kubernetes cluster and I can say, hey, every time somebody deploys an application, I need you to add this request, and this limit to every container that gets deployed onto my cluster. Point blank period. I need you to add these labels onto the cluster. I need you to make sure I'm looking at these certain things in my cluster, right? Because now you're adding that standardization, you're automating that standardization into the product. And I think that's the best way to do it as far as like quality is concerned, and also being able to handle technical debt in a more efficient way. Yes. I said Kubernetes, and your hand just went straight up.
Like you said about standardization. About Kubernetes. Like, have you ever been in a situation where, like, so you're trying to put forth the standardization, you got folks who don't want to follow along.
Man, what? I got into my CTO so many times. Oh,
like,
my goodness.
What if it's go to about
man, that dude go edit.
I have devs who are like, I'm like, yo, this is the template, like, this is the way. And they're like, nah.
Build.
That's exactly, but that's
what I do.
But that's what I was gonna say. That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Fail the build.
There's code standards that you must align to for Drupal, TypeScript, React, Angular, whatever, and you can automate that, right?
Yep.
So that's linting, that's code standards. You run that in your Docker build. It fails, their code can't get to QA, and then their tickets are behind. They hate me with a passion for it. But like the code looks consistent, right? Same with like unit tests or end-to-end tests or whatever else. I don't know if those tools are too much tools, but there's some right balance.
I agree with that. I'm right there with you. Fail it. I'll do it all day. I'm like, nah, this shit is not going to production. But you got to do that though, right? Because at the end of the day, especially as an SRE, you're concerned about the quality of this application going into production. I just can't let everything get in there. So fail it and let them figure it out. And if they got questions, hey, come holler at me. That's what I do. And it's kind of tough for them because it's like, it's 6'4" black dude, probably just got done working out. They like, do I really want to do that? But I'm like, bro, it's cool. But I always try to work with them though. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, here, look at the bills, see why I failed, and go from there. But that's fine. That's still scary though. That's still scary. Any other questions, concerns, complaints, experiences anybody want to share? I know y'all got more to say about technical debt because y'all probably gonna go to work and complain all day. Man, I saw this talk. No, I'm just playing. Go ahead, man.
So I found an actual term for something I've seen in every job. I wonder how you would address this. It's the anti-pattern of the lava flow. So it's, you start with a team, they have standards, starts all golden, right? And they're like it's like a C# app or something, we're using C# MVC, we're doing it this way. Senior architect goes to some other company, new guy comes in, he's like, MVC is crap, we're going to put everything new in Web API. So then the old stuff is like lazy, no one wants to do it, you end up with this new layer of all the new hotness in Web API. Then that starts going out, and this new guy comes in 4 years later, oh, it's GraphQL. So now all the new stuff is GraphQL. So you end up with this lava flow of these layers of hardware that get built on top of each other.
Yeah. Adam Tornhill, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Adam Tornhill has a really, really good talk about technical debt, and he built a tool that actually goes and looks for stuff like that. And basically what it does, it goes through your it goes through your code base, it looks at the whole commit history and all of this kind of stuff, and things like that. You'll see stuff like that. You'll have one like unicorn engineer that does all the work on this one particular piece of the software, then he leaves, and then you'll see over time like nobody touches that software. And so what you end up having is people start building around it, building new interfaces, building all this stuff, because they don't understand what's going on, right? They have no clue. But that's kind of where the documentation. At some point, somebody has to go in and figure out how does this thing work, right? You got to stop the bleeding, and it sucks. And I'm not saying it's fun, but somebody has to go in and stop the bleeding. And they're gonna have to reason through. They're gonna have to reverse engineer their way back into understanding how this thing works. We're dealing with it right now, and I'm not looking forward to dealing when I go back to work. I'm not even gonna lie to you. But
how do you try and preemptively stop it? Stop the new guy from coming in and switching it, or if you are, how do you try and suggest it? Like,
how
hey,
cool is the
you
new
do
guy
that.
with upper management? So now we're going into a politic game. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just, as engineers, you don't want to get into that. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna lose that. Trust me, I've lost that battle many a times. It's common sense and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter. I'll go to the upper managers and be like, we need to document stuff. They're like, that's a waste of time. This is stupid. That's a waste of time. Home Depot comes in, y'all need to document y'all shit. Well, I guess we gotta start documenting. Duh, I've been trying to tell y'all that. Come on, bro. So, I seen another hand go up. Nobody? Oh, you got another question? Go ahead, bro.
Actually, so we have software, so everyone uses this, and it's used across the entire department.
Yep.
It's written in Bash and Perl.
Oh man, that sounds fun.
He actually uses, so it's like 10,000 individual bash scripts that all communicate with each other via screen scraper. The script executes. He reads the output of the screen.
You know what? It was fun talking to y'all. I'm like, sorry. I apologize for you. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna be the one.
So what's the question? What do you?
So what I was gonna get at is that it's easy to be like, wow, that's crazy, but then you write one yourself. And so I found myself a couple times going back to a problem like, I didn't know the unit test for this. If I touch anything in this, I'm gonna break it, and I can't blame anyone but myself.
Yeah.
For the fact that there's this monolithic piece of code that looks like crap. And so you look at it and say, so.
You just want to complain? You want to vent?
Yeah, I'm just venting right now.
Okay.
I have tried to. So I guess I'll just throw it as advice to you. Unit testing for your code that already exists is worth it, but it will be so much of a pain that you'll be ready to rewrite the whole thing. Then you write your unit test and realize that your code sucks too much for you to write a unit test for it. You gotta refactor it so that the unit test can actually be tested.
It's like a
properly.
chicken and the egg problem. Golly, I'm sorry.
You probably get through it. The code
Yeah.
is better at the end.
But I'm a firm believer of unit tests are freedom. Unit tests, when you put them in place, you at least kind of have some sense of like, okay, did I break something? You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what they're there for. If you put shitty unit tests in there, then that's on you if that shit breaks. That's on y'all. Like I'm gonna be real with you, because at the end of the day, somebody's gonna have to come back and fix it. But the unit test creates this freedom. It's like what I talked about. You want to minimize the tough decisions that you have to make, and unit test is what allows for that, right? By putting those things in place. So yeah, is it a pain to do? Hell yeah, it's a pain to do. Nobody said it was fun, but shit, y'all getting paid money to do tough stuff. Nobody's paying you pennies to do any easy work. And you have to accept that responsibility every day that you go into work. You're gonna have to do hard things sometimes. Everything's not gonna always be easy. But when you put good things in place, put good standardizations in place, it can help make your job easier. She said, any other questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas? Anybody want to vent as well? I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Modern day technical debt therapist over here. You know what I'm saying? I understand the pain. I just understand the pain. So it's just kind of like, let's talk about it. Let's vent. Let's go to work. Y'all gonna go to work and y'all still gonna see the same shitty shit. But you know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, even if you go and just implement one thing or just look at the code base differently, you know what I'm saying? I feel like I did my job. So, like I said, I can't help eliminate everything because everybody got their own shit they got to deal with.
So here's just
Here you go. All right, everybody about to pack up and go. What's up?
How do you get your vendors to like not.
I can't do nothing about no vendors.
Nah, vendors
What were you about to say? No, I'm sorry.
They trash. They give you trash data. They don't even validate their XML if they're sending you XML. It's like,
Man, you gotta pick a better vendor.
It's
Oh, it's the company just pushing it down.
It's above us and like they're cheap. They're cheap. They'll cost that much.
And what problem are they solving with whatever tools that they're buying? What problems?
Besides the like the things that they want out of them, like they do mobile donations well. Okay, well that's great, but their API is bad. They don't have them.
Yeah.
Like, they have a reporting API that.
Yeah. Then I'm complaining like there's no tomorrow to my vendors. I'm making sure they feel me, because that's what we did. That's what I had to do when we were doing the big cloud migration. We're doing a big cloud migration to Azure, from AWS to Azure, and the Azure vendors didn't know what the hell they were talking about because they never actually worked with Azure. Which makes no sense. It's like you bring me a guy to help me with my migration and he's never used it before. Beyond me, but complain to high hell. I made them feel it. We made them feel it. Exactly.
This is how much you're wasting when you're doing this thing versus how much you're saving.
That was Terry. That's the homie Terry.
Always have the money.
That's what I'm talking about, Terry. When you at Netflix, you already know how to play the game. You already know how to play the game. You already know how to play the game, but that's real quantified. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm spending all of this money for this product for y'all to help me out, and it's actually taking up all of this time. Bro, nah, that's not it. This is not what I'm paying for. I usually buy, if I'm buying a tool from a vendor, it's because I'm trying to cut time or I'm trying to add some type of value. And if you're actually adding more value or adding more trouble into what I'm doing, like, bro, I'm about to be a whole bitch right now. Like, you're going to hear everything I got to say. And that's just what it is. So, but yeah, definitely quantified. Any other questions? This is fun, man. I hope y'all had a good time, man. Y'all got to like come in here and talk some shit with me, and we got to complain and vent and all that kind of stuff. If y'all want to keep complaining to me outside, we can complain outside too. But I'm Reggie. Follow me on Twitter. All that good stuff. And thank y'all.